Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Travis Fox. He's a construction innovator, founder of Build Your Fortress, and it's also known as the Mindscape architect. Welcome to the show, Dr. Travis.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for letting me be here. And, every time I hear someone say some of my intros, I always kind of chuckle. At the ripe age of 54, I go, are they talking about me? Is that me? I have so much to do in my mind that I haven't yet to accomplish, and I listen to it. So thank you for the wonderful introduction. Thanks for letting me be on the show today.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Dr. Travis. And not for anything, you are Dr. Travis Fox. You are an Emmy Award holder, winner, doctorates in both psychology and clinical hypnotherapy. So much of this. So I don't know how to put that all together. And so it is better. We'll be talking about a lot of things. We'll talk about, construction, future of construction, speed, saving, sustainability, all this from you. But first, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, also from that whole field of psychology and clinical hypnotherapy to talking about construction. Tell us a bit about your background, your journey.
Well, AJ, I don't know how long the show is, so I'm going to give you the condensed version of this. So we'll make this fast. 54 years in literally 2 minutes. My journey actually started, I grew up outside the United States. My mother was a model and actress. My father was a fighter pilot. So I started my life in Asia and Japan, and I spent the first 4.5 years there. And then I spent a brief time in the United States, about 6 months. During that time, my father put a golf club in my hand, and that became our thought process. Dad was like, you're going to become a PGA Tour player. And this is before Tiger Woods, because I'm a couple of years older than Tiger, although we all grew up in the same era and same kind of philosophy, right? We're going to change golf. And so we went over to Europe, and I got to see Europe all the way. It was a wonderful education. And I really learned that people are the same everywhere you go, all have the same basic hierarchy of thought process and needs, credit to Maslow. And I started playing golf, and I got into psychology really when I was 13. 2 books that I read that changed my life. And then I got to meet one of my heroes 40 some years later was Dr. Dennis Waitley, The Psychology of Winning. And of course, the other one was Psycho-Cybernetics. And I became absolutely fascinated with how do you transform this thing above your shoulders? How does this thing work? Because nothing in school had really taught me anything. And to this day, you learn some things, but you don't learn how it operates. And so that became my modus operandi. How do we actually transform ourselves? Because if change is constant, then we should be the ones directing the change and architecting our life. Ergo, 19 years old, everyone knows Travis Fox is going to be in the PGA Tour. But the one thing that I had not counted on was emotional heartbreak. And they don't teach you that when you're a teenager and how to deal with that. In fact, they barely teach you as an adult how to deal with that. Let's be honest. So I ended up going through this heartbreak, and it emotionally destroyed me. I wasn't ready. I was prepared for psychological. I've been in tournament competition. I was very dedicated, super persistent and consistent. And long story long, that's when I met my mentor and master. And I went to the psychology department and said, hey, I'm a head case. My whole identity, my life is falling apart. What do I do? Long story long, he introduced me to hypnotherapy. And at the time, like many people, less so in today's generation, but during that generation, it was, look deep into my eyes. It's just hypnoidal wheel. And it's this Svengali effect that is mind control. I'm like, man, if it was mind control, the world would be a very, very different place. We would have some different ideologies. But I became fascinated by it. And I changed my life. And golf and real estate were always the same to me, because obviously without real estate, there is no golf. And so my original dream was to be on the PGA Tour as a player and develop golf courses at the same time. Those are my 2 passions. Well, the golf career switched where I became one of the top head coaches on the PGA Tour. In fact, I did 10 years on the tour and was the first psychological infomercial in history, both on the Golf Channel and PBS, and went around the world. And it was called Beat the Bogeyman. And it was really based on, how do I get this thing to transform? And where do these random thoughts come up, whether it's in sports or whether it's in business or relationship or just random? Where do these thoughts come up from within us that say, you're never going to make it, you're not good enough, or in golf, it's, don't hit it out of bounds, don't hit it in the water. And, we all think, I would never think that. I'm a positive person. I read Norman Vincent Peale's book, Learned Optimism. I know how to be optimistic, and yet I still have these negative thoughts. And I find them a lot in businesses. And I started getting into more the business consulting side as a young entrepreneur. This was the number one question I was faced with. People didn't want to know sales training. They didn't want to culture. They didn't even want to know leadership. They wanted to know, how do I get my head on square? And I started looking at it. And so I went to my mentor master where I sat under 15 years. I did achieve my 2 doctorates, one in psychology, one in clinical hypnotherapy. And the ideology is that we have a sequencing need, AJ, and it's pervasive in human psychology. I mean, on a global scale. And you all know this process. All of you listening to the show is we've all been told it's mind, body, spirit in that order. Here's the fundamental problem. You go back 6,000, 7,000 years ago, all the great philosophers already told us that mind can't solve itself. So therefore, to ask someone, say, hey, AJ, we're going to work on your mind, your body, and your spirit, on your business, your personal relationship, your company culture, your sales, whatever we're targeting. If you start with mind, well, you'll never get past it. But you can stay in the labyrinth of your mind for an entire lifetime and then literally miss it. And so long story long, here we are 34 years later. The system of dual path dynamics was developed over that long career, which is where I'm in. And I apply it to every business I'm at. And how did I get into manufacturing, into high performance panels? It's a twofold story. We're back to real estate again. And 2, because of the military side of my family, and now all the way reaching to my eldest son, who is a special force operator, 4 tours. He's got his master's in poli-sci. He's got his law degree from Georgetown. He's worked for everybody you need to know in DC, and came out and said, hey, Daddy was struggling to buy a house, which I found just mind-boggling. I'm like, that should be a no-brainer for you. You've served our country. You've done what you need to do for God and country, commander in chief, and now you can't get a house? Well, I started looking into this a little bit more, and what I discovered was horrifying. That, we have in our country right now, we have about 1 million vets that have served in whatever branch they've served in, who are unable to get homes. They're struggling with maybe drug or some sort of addiction. And moreover, they feel lost and discarded. And that just absolutely upset me. And I became a man on fire. And so I took all of my career and said, there's got to be a better way for us to build better, faster, greener, stronger structures, homes, businesses that aren't so wasteful, but also don't take so long and also will last. Because let's agree, our weather patterns are definitely changing. I don't care what the side of the aisle you land on climate change. Just look at the results and just let it speak for yourself. And about 4 years ago, I discovered high performance panels and became absolutely fascinated and said, okay, let me look at this industry, got involved in it, acquired a company, and said, well, there's 2 fundamental problems, AJ. Here's the deal. The automated lines that are currently used in the industry are slow. Now, they can produce well, don't get me wrong, but they're not producing at the speed that we work in an AI world. And I always analogize this way. For those of you listening, the rest of the world, in generalities, is building in a Jetsons era. The United States is still building in the Flintstones era. We are still doing the same stick and brick barn raising that we have done pretty much for the last almost 300 years since we were colony members breaking away from the UK at the time. And that makes no sense. I mean, if you look with that same ideology, we'd never have these things that are called devices. We'd never be doing what we're doing right now. We wouldn't have the electric cars or flying cars and all these amazing things that we have. But we still look at how we're taking care of the basic needs of shelter for human beings. In often cases, especially in the United States, we're doing it the old way. And that makes no sense. So innovation was a priority to me. I looked at it 2 ways. One, we redeveloped the automated line so we could do a 4 times output. Let me put that in context for you. An average line on our side is about 60 panels for every 8 hours. That's about a house a day at 1,200 square foot, 322, right? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage. That's it. House a day. That's only 30 houses. That's 360 houses a year. We're not even making a dent of a dent of a dent. I said, that's a problem. So we ended up creating a better automated line that still has humans involved and puts people to work, which is key for manufacturing, but it creates its throughput about 4 times. Now we're doing 200 panels every 8 hours. So this new line, which we developed, allows us to do that 4 times output. Well, now it's almost, we're talking almost 6 to 7 houses a day per line. Now we're going to make an impact, but that's still not the problem. The other problem was, what's the one problem in manufacturing? The building itself is static, meaning it doesn't move. It's in one location. Well, that's great if you're only servicing the 500 miles around that facility, but the United States and every other country are very large geographical masses. So when we get into logistical cost, get diesel, trucks, etc., logistics becomes a problem and time becomes a problem, which you end up trying to pass on to the customer. And all the savings and benefits that you have on the front end of working with a SIP ends up becoming a neutrality with standard packaging. And then the mindset of, well, the old way still works becomes this pervasive thought process we battle. So we solved it. So I spent all of last year and literally sacrificed all of our sales and said, we're not going to focus on sales. We're going to focus on R&D. We've got to solve the manufacturing problem. Otherwise, we will never deal with the 8 million home deficit we have here in the United States. We're on the precipice of doing that right now as we speak. We've developed a line that allows us to have a dual line, meaning that the line itself can be picked up, put on 4 trucks, and driven to your location. We can produce the panels right on site for you in real time for disaster relief. organizations like FEMA, or the things all of you have seen here in Los Angeles or North Carolina, the disasters the United States is currently dealing with, and many other countries. This is not isolated. This is a global concept, but it allows us to be mobile. But also, when the trucks aren't in need, the line can come off into a building and run like a traditional manufacturing facility. That allows us mobility and allows us to be the modern day cavalry, where we're actually responding in less than hours to be able to start putting structures back up to give emergency services, an emergency shelter for those who need it. So our USP has really become about changing the automated line and mostly about the mobility. And that's how I arrive at Build Your Fortress at your show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you indeed. Means that is changing the whole dynamics. Earlier on, I was just thinking about that you can build a house quickly, but if I understand, now you can not only get your house, but you can also take your house wherever you want to. Is that correct, Dr. Travis?
Yes and no. Moreover, the manufacturing line itself can come to you, the general contractor, or you, the developer. So for example, when we're dealing with big high density and multifamily developments, maybe 6, 7 buildings, 300, 400, individual doors or units at a time, those are long-term builds. On average, those are 18 to 24 month build in the traditional way. In our way, the trucks can roll up and we're producing the panels right on site in a mobile line. Then when we're done, we leave, but the structural upload and the structural build out of that thing is now done in months versus years. Allows us speed to build and then move on to the next project. The house itself, there are structures when you do a shed or an RV or an outdoor structure that is not your primary structure. Yeah, they can be deconstructed and moved, because SIPs were also used by our military as a way to do the exact same thing. Provide a quick structure that provided security and support for the military forces, but also be able to deconstruct it, move it fast, and be able to use it again. So it does have that capability. However, with houses and structures, I tend not to recommend it, but obviously you could do that. It just takes a little longer. But without structures like sheds, RVs, carports, tree houses, boat houses, outhouses, whatever, those can be deconstructed. And more importantly, they can be done by you in less than a couple of hours and still get the same solidity that you do from a traditional structure from a high performance panel.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Dr. Travis, for a common person and for someone who is not from a construction line, but only as a customer, consumer who has known only traditional ways, what is this high performance panel?
Yeah, so high performance panels are exactly what it sounds like. They're high performance, one, because of the speed that we can kick them out and the speed to build your structure. 2, high performance panels are exactly what they sound like from the perspective of how they perform, both as a structure, both as speed to construction, savings, cost, and most importantly, survivability. So let's walk through those real quickly. Here's some quick stats that will give you that for anybody listening who has no idea what a SIP is. Let's back up. Let's define a SIP clearly. A SIP is an acronym that stands for Structurally Insulated Panel. The best way to describe this is an ice cream sandwich. I want you to imagine a 7/16 OSB siding, hyper-compressed polystyrene, where we slam it together under high pressure and bar rate to remove all the air to create a solid core, and then sandwiched on the other side with 7/16 OSB. So when you're literally putting these panels up together, they can create the structure in real time, but it also eliminates a bunch of other steps. Because of the solidity of the building, your insulation is already built in. And our R factor on a standard panel, which is 6 inches thick, is R25. That's pretty solid. Now, the difference between that and you hear it in a traditional build is ours is solid core. It doesn't deconstruct. You don't have air leaks because there is no air. But most importantly, it's solid core. So you have sound compression. You have your R factor, which is huge when you're dealing with your HVAC, because most people don't realize after you get the structure, you got to run it. And with these extreme weather patterns, heating and cooling it's a variant cost that can be the difference between food on the table or, hey, I have to make the payment on the house and we go a little thin. Those are things that people don't think about that we do, especially when we're dealing with our vets and first responders. Then we talk about waste and savings. When you're doing traditional build, human beings have to measure and cut. And when they put drywall on, you have to hit it on stud. If you miss, you blow the drywall. Well, not with a SIP or high performance panel, because it's a solid core. You can literally put the drywall. You're putting drywall flat on a flat surface. You can't miss. And your corners are already at 90 degrees because everything is CNC'd to the millimeter, including your window cuts, your door cuts, your headers. All that's done for you. So you're literally assembling on a site, but it's not modular and it's not prefab. All we're doing is giving you the panels so that instead of doing lumber, and then going in and creating your headers, and then creating, your electrical chase, cutting through the studs. It's all done for you. We actually create the conduit in our factory right through the middle of the polystyrene. You can literally wire the house in a day. It takes not very long, and it's like any electrician can do it. And it takes only one. It doesn't take 5. So you can then move the boxes anywhere you want, and that creates fabricational capabilities. But let's talk about the other factor. Your speed to build is cut by almost 50%. So you can look on our website, buildyourfortress.com. We did one, and we've done many, but this one in particular with Habitat for Humanity, a very well-known organization on a global scale. Former President Carter, as you know, who recently passed. But they're pretty good framers. They had their frame up in about 21 days all in. And we said, tell you what, we're going to go side by side in a traditional build. You build yours in frame. We'll build the exact same blueprint right next door to each other with high performance panels. They were 21 days. We did it in 4.5 hours with their help, with people who have never done it before. So if you've never been in construction, SIPs are definitely going to be your best friend. We give you a full guide to show you how to do it. It is literally any DIY project, so you can build your own home. And there's value in that, AJ, because we take a different possession when we're a part of it. Even if you're just a part of the basic structuring and your subcontractors do all your finishing, both externals and internals. But here's the best part. High performance panels are ground force rated to 160 mile an hour wind force. Why is that important? Well, if you have a hurricane or you have tornadoes or typhoons, which most of the world does in some form or another, and even seismic, according to the Kobe Japan study, SIPs can survive. And here in the United States, it's the only product that Miami-Dade County down in Florida, which has a boatload of hurricanes, says is that will survive hurricanes. And we've tested this time and time again. So that allows you to know that you have a fortress, hence the name. And we believe everybody should be the king and queen of their own castle, whether that's 900 square feet or 9,000 square feet. It's not for us to tell you what your castle is, but it should be something that keeps you safe, something that is an asset, something that's going to survive the test of time. And that becomes an investment versus, hey, I'm just going to buy a house and hope to God it works because that's what I can afford. Well, it should be affordable. So we're working on right now with a project down in Tennessee that allows us to build a 1,200 square foot 322 vaulted that would allow that whole house to be built with high performance panels and finished all the way out for a cost basis of $140,000, making a retail price of about $197,000. That's what it should be. The median price in America is almost double that, and in some cases triple that. With interest rates that most of the world is suffering, it becomes impossible. And home ownership, and we go back to Maslowian hierarchy of needs: food, air, water, shelter. Shelter, or a safety thematic, is what makes people relax and start thinking creatively, and entrepreneurial, and to work with your neighbors and imagine. AJ, and we do this with our vets. It's a part of their process, is they actually build their home with us. They learn how to build SIPs. Then they build their neighbors, the next door, with them, because now all of a sudden we're doing what we used to do. And we need this more than ever, in my humble opinion. We need connectivity. We need collaboration. After the last 5 years of what the globe has gone through, we don't even know our neighbors anymore. Heck, we barely know ourselves. I mean, we're in the greatest experiment, and I don't know that's a positive thing. We'll see, of humanity. But this allows us all to feel it immediately. And you can watch us on our website. Watch us build one of these homes together with people who've never built before. But watch the dialogue and watch the surprise and watch the mindset of, why haven't we been building this way for a while? I'm like, isn't that a question? But we're past that now. And now it's an opportunity to invest in ourselves, invest in your country, and build communities that are really the fortress, because that's what it's going to boil down to. It's our towns, our communities, our cities, our countries. That's our fortress. And I'm not talking about from a defensive point of view. I'm talking about just from Mother Nature, who is formidable when she's upset. When she wants to let you know who the boss is, you're going to know. And if she wants to go past 160, well, then God's going to take whatever structure God wants to take. But at least give us a shot and a chance to survive with the products that we have now in our current day of technology that give people a solidity, a fortress to protect their family, which is, again, a hierarchical need. We get that done. We start thinking differently. We don't think so. It's me, I, me, and it's every man for himself. And that ideology, we've done that for about 6 centuries. I don't know. I'm not the sharpest tool, AJ, but I can just kind of look around and go, maybe that model doesn't work, guys. Maybe we could try something different now, because after 6 centuries and billions of souls who have come through this and millions who have died in these wars, really over resources 99% of the time, or ideology. sadly, and again, I'm not an expert on war, so please don't interpret that I am. I'm just looking at humanity and going, but what if we came together and we built something together? And it happens in hours because we're used to doing things in seconds now with our phones. We're used to doing things like this conversation around the world. We're used to being connected, but we're still disassociatively connected. We don't hang out with our neighbors as much because we don't have the vested interest anymore. We hire a GC, hire a developer, or we just buy a house and we don't really pay attention. But if you put one panel up in your home, it will change your psychology of ownership. If you put one panel up in your neighbor's home or in a project with your neighbor that you can do in hours and you both feel the satisfaction of building something solid together, there's a bond that comes through that again, if you look at it through using a lens of war, the brotherhood that comes from that experience, that cauldron of war, not that I recommend war, but this is a war against weather. This is a war that Mother Nature is saying, I can wipe you off the planet anytime I want. I wipe the dinosaurs out. You're next. So at least give us a shot. And working together against, and I use this term loosely, not that I want to be against Mother Nature. For those of you who know, that's not my style, but as a ideology of there is no real enemy on this planet except for what's between our ears. And what's between our ears says, this is the way we have to build it. And whatever the disaster that comes our way, well, we'll just rebuild. Well, we're seeing that dissolve here in the United States. And I can't speak for other countries, although I'm aware of a couple other that I'll leave nameless at the moment. But we're starting to see these insurance companies will no longer insure the traditional sticks and bricks. We see it in California. We now see it in Florida. And it's happening. So now what was an 8 million home deficit is on the climb. And it's like a hockey stick. It's going up so fast. And that doesn't include commercial or retail or warehouse or industrial or multifam, mixed use. Those commercial, right? When we look at all of these buildings and we go, wait a minute, why are we're saving our resources? We save 30% waste. We're 50% faster. You save up to 70% in your HVAC costs and you can last up to 160 mile an hour ground force. Doesn't it make sense? And isn't it time we invest in something like this? That's how we arrive here, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Travis. So who is your competitor here? Where is the do you have competitors at all?
There are other SIP manufacturers, but what we've done is build your fortress. We understand that we can't, one company cannot supply the demand, just in the United States alone, much less the rest of the world. So we have started reaching out here in effective 2025, and we already have 3 partners that we work with that are other SIP manufacturers and saying, look, I'll take the work that I have. I'll send it off to you with both profit share, because even if our lines are running 24 hours a day, all of us together, we still couldn't even make a dent. If we could get to 500,000 homes in 1 year, that would be incredible. It would be Guinness Book of World Records of insanity to do that. But it's possible if we work together. We call that competitive collaboration. Yes, we're all still competing, but we're not competing against each other anymore. We're competing against the deficit. We're competing against, as I've said in this entire interview, and thank you for the space to do that and all of you listening, it's really the ideology that we have to build it the old way. But again, if that were true, we wouldn't be having this conversation the way we're having it. We wouldn't be on these devices that are more powerful than any computer we've ever developed in the history of man, bar quantum. And we're about ready to make that next leap. And we're going, guys, if we're not careful, we'll have robots building these homes, but it will still be the traditional way. So even the manner in which we build traditionally can and will be replaced by cyborgs or AI robots, because they can build 24 hours a day and humans don't. So if we don't start shifting now to a different ideology where we can still be a part of that process, still keep people employed and continue to grow business models, the construction industry is next. You just have to simply stare at it. And we look at automation from manufacturing, from autos is the first place you see it is auto manufacturing. And then we start looking at automation in the food service divisions. When you look at that, building materials is next. It's the only one that hasn't been really adjusted in 100 years. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks this way, but what I do offer is a different way to think. And I'm like, hey guys, how about we do competitive collaboration? We all work together. We do profit sharing, and we put people before profits. Because if we don't start doing that, there is one inevitable conclusion that humanity has determined over the last 6 centuries, and that's revolutionary war. It happens every single time. Every single country. There is not a country that is immune from this on this planet, because human dynamics for all of us, regardless of race, creed, or gender, or religion, or culture, is the same. We're all built in these same human spacesuits that we call human bodies, and same mind ideology. Now, there's slight variances, but at the end of the day, you can go anywhere. I've had the beautiful pleasure of traveling the world 3 times into amazing places in almost 70 countries, and there's many more to go. But everywhere I've gone, I've learned 2 things. I'm in the people business. and I love people. They fascinate me, but I learn from every single one of them. And I'm curious about how they learn and how do they transform and how can we help them transform if we even can. Is that even a fair statement to say? Because who am I to teach anybody anything? I'm a student myself, just like everyone else. I know two facts, and in the great words of the great philosopher Alan Watts, death is inevitable and life is a choice. The question is, are we going on the adventure of a lifetime? Or are we just passing through our lifetime hoping for adventure? I choose the prior. Let's go for it. We may not get everyone you want, but at least you went down swinging and you went for the adventure. Because if you don't, then the only thing you'll regret is regret itself. And unfortunately, I think we all know that death is non-negotiable and not a good conversationalist either. In fact, even God doesn't stop death. So might want to be aware of that one's coming. So the death of a thought process or an ideology is our first death. In that case, that's the death of favorability. To kill that ideology of ourselves of, well, that's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always going to be. If that were true, we would still be in the Stone Age. We literally would be. But we know that's not true. But we force ourselves to believe that. And part of what the challenge and competition, to answer your question on finality, is I battle every day against a mindset. I battle every day against people who have said, this is the way we've always done, this is the way we're always going to do it. People who put profit above people. And in some cases, and I say this respectfully, at least in the United States, politicians who will block progress in the name of some sort of what's in it for me. And my response is, not a damn thing, sir or ma'am. You were elected by the people for the people. There's nothing in it for you except for the people's success and your potential reelection. I'm not going to play that game. I refuse to play it because every time I have even got into a conversation like that and I step back and say, I'm not going to play it, the thing that we deal with, AJ, is mysteriously a grant or a permit or our support is pulled, which tells me that until we move into competitive collaboration where we're competing against ourselves to become the best version of ourselves, the best company that we can be, working with our competitors, if there is such a thing, until we do that, well, then we're right back to where we started. Only now we've got COVID on top of that as an individual level, and then we have it on a cultural level. Now we have it on a country level, and most importantly, we have it on a business company level. Well, there's only one response left, and I've already said it. At that point, you will reach a space of revolution, and the revolution has its merit in certain times and eras. But right now, that's the last thing the world needs, man. We need to stop fighting. We've had enough. We have had the dark night of the soul for the last 5 years. How about we have a little bit of light and start rebuilding as though we've been through a war. We've already been through World War III. It was called COVID, right? It was on a global scale. So let's come together. And it doesn't take a lot to do this. And that's what's mind-boggling to people. Like, well, what do you need? $100 million? No, not at all. Not even close. It doesn't require that. It requires the ingenuity of people and what we've been able to pull off and where we're headed. Because my dream at the end, AJ, is that we can take this company public, that every veteran or first responder or anybody else who wants to own a part of it should. Even if they can only put $1 in, they should have the opportunity to grow that as well, just like anybody else. And so for us, our ideology is to eventually take this company public, hopefully in the next 2 years. We've been gearing up with our partners to do that. But in the meantime, now we're still a private company, and we work with people who want to invest in smart things that understand that manufacturing needs to come back, period. On every country's level, not just one country or two. And I think we all know what I'm talking about, but also two, to be able to share this technology with other countries around the world. Wouldn't that make the most sense? It's like, hey guys, this is an IP that I've been working on. I've spent my entire life fortune on it. I am completely all in. There is no plan B for Travis Fox, but it's a story of every country has some sort of military. Redact that. Most countries have a military. Let me be fair. And those people serve. And it takes a toll on them and it takes a toll on their family, regardless of wartime or not. Distance sometimes is the most vile of enemies and it hurts families. But why not give these people the support? They've earned the right to defend it so that all of us can do and pursue other dreams that aren't in necessarily service directive military or first responders. But we expect them to be there for us in times of emergency. Doesn't it make sense that we should be there without them expecting us to be there? It's our thanks for it. And that's really our philosophy behind Build Your Fortress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in your assessment, is this the future of, construction? Is this, in this sort of, high performance panels will be the future of construction? Others will also have to adopt and adapt to it rather than just looking at the old way. And this is going to spread all through the world. How do you see the future of construction from here on?
I think the future of construction, definitely high performance panels is one of the top leaders. There are a bunch of other products that surround how we do the structural SIPs that make it go faster as well. So I think it is every part of the construction industry needs to, for lack of definition, revamp itself. It needs to upgrade. I mean, we're looking at 3D printing models of how we do cement blocks now. We're looking at hemp as a different concept for both OSB as well as replacing of concrete. Concrete is becoming incredibly expensive. It's a depleting resource, and people don't realize that concrete is not a singular thing. It's a combination of different products that make that product, no different than a SIP. But also, too, we have got to stop on a global scale relying on lumber as our primary resource. There are better resourceful products that have just the same kind of tensile strength, both vertical and horizontal. I cite bamboo, I cite hemp, I cite coconut husk, and a bunch of other ones that are coming out where we're going, hey guys, the SIP makes sense because of the less waste and time to build and structural integrity. Yet it keeps, because it's a continual flow, it's not necessarily subject to as much of the flows, ebbs and flows that construction industry goes through, because all the different materials that it takes to put structures together, specifically homes. Not only do I think it's the future, I think how we're doing it is the future. The speed of our ability to do it. Trees don't grow faster because we want them to. They grow at the speed Mother Nature says. But SIPs can be done with other products, and polystyrene, or styrofoam, as all of you would know it, it just needs to stop going in our landfills because it's non-biodegradable. This is on a global scale. We are doing harm to ourselves and making it difficult for us to get some of these other resources like lumber, because we're putting these landfills with polystyrene that doesn't decompose. Why not take that, recycle it, and use it in these structures? Well, now that makes more sense. So now we're doing two birds with one stone. Now let's move into three. And let's replace OSB. For example, when we're invited to go to Africa, which we have been for the last couple of years, our number one problem wasn't the speed to build. It wasn't labor force. It was lumber. It was like, well, how do we solve that? And that's where I came up with the idea of, well, what if we used coconut husk? Because that's a waste product in a lot of those areas. It just sits on the ground. Well, instead of, just letting it sit there and be a pain, give it to me. We'll shred it. We'll make it a new OSB, and let's replace that product again. So we're taking the resources that Mother Nature has given us and using them at the speed by which she gives it, as opposed to saying, well, we're going to clear cut this entire section and we're going to leave that alone for the next 10 years. And then we're going to go over here and do that. Again, that was great until we started looking at other opportunities. And now there's even opportunities where we can replace OSB with plastics. We can replace them with other things that are waste products. So it's really getting down to the seriousness of, do we really care about future generations, or is that some mythical thing that we like to say that sounds good on some political grandstanding? Well, I want to give it to future generations. Well, then do it. I double dog dare you. I dare you. And let's stop investing in things that give you quick profit and things that are going to give you consistent profit. There's a difference. Manufacturing is not sexy. What we did is made it sexy. Why? Because of speed of output on the throughput of the line itself, but two, taking it on the road. I mean, imagine now 4 trucks show up, 4 52-foot flatbed trailers show up, and you've got a mobile line and we're manufacturing right on site. How much would that help Los Angeles and the fires and their rebuild? I can tell you, I've been on the phone with them for the last month. Their problem is they're still arguing about, what are we going to do with the demo? How are we going to demo all this stuff? And it's a real problem, don't get me wrong. But imagine if you could go in and we put up literally a temporary structure, because we can put it up in hours. Literally hours. And I'm talking big structures, 10, 12,000 square foot structures where we could do temporary emergency services, where we could have shelter for the people that were literally lost everything. And this is a global scale, because no matter what country you're in, they have the exact same problem. It may be a different name. You can call it a typhoon. You can call it a tsunami. You can call it whatever you want. It's still an economic and physiological destruction of communities. But we can rebuild them better, faster, greener, stronger. And again, I cite all of this and say, we've had enough of the I generation. It doesn't work. Why? Because if every man's in it for themselves, then no man is going to make it, because no one is self-made. So it's a defaulting, in my opinion, dissolving ideology that will eventually regurgitate to man's basic primal need for self-survival. And when we do that, we become aggressive. We become warlike. We become, with all due respect, dumb. We become limbic. right? We just go into our reptilian brain and we become caveman. We're not. We have a cerebral cortex. We can think and we can deduce. We're going to Mars now, guys. We have satellites and we're talking on phones. Guys, we can do this. What it requires is the visionary patriots of every single country to say, hey, we can build this a whole new way. We don't have to build the Flintstones anymore. We can, but why not build in the Jetsons, and why not do it together in a competitive collaboration? Make me better, AJ. Teach me how to do something better. Because if I knew everything, well, I promise you I wouldn't be on the planet, and neither would you. So let's agree that we are constant students. And I am a constant student. I learn every single day. I have an incredible team. We are represented by every single branch of military in the United States on our board and our advisory board, from high-ranking colonels to sergeants who've been on battlefields. And they all have the same ideology. And I challenge every one of you in your own country, uphold the oath to your flag, to your country. Just because you may not wear a military uniform or you may not be a first responder, you pledge allegiance to your flag, just like we do here in the United States. That oath does not stop because you have your home, or because you've owned one, or just because you think you've reached at a certain age. No, sir. No, ma'am. Your oath to that is an oath. Otherwise, your oath doesn't mean anything. Well, that's between for you and God to determine, and I'm not God. So we have a whole program that's called Keepers of the Oath, and that's what the trucks are named for. When we show up, our job is we're upholding the oath and keeping the oath that we all made, whether civilian or military, to help rebuild our countries so that the infrastructure is safe and solid and everyone can pursue their dream, not just the American dream. It's everyone's dream on this planet to have a better, faster, and more fun life that they can hand to their kids and enjoy it, because we all know, whether you are delusional and believing that you have time, which that's an illusion, hate to break it to you, you guys all know this, or you finally come to the awareness that your purpose is bigger than your profit. Your profit will not show up at your funeral. Nice try. I cite the late great Steve Jobs. Not a single day did his profit show up to his funeral, and nor did it buy him one more minute. And we all know this psychologically, but we are all master self-hypnotists and giving ourselves illusions of nonsense and convincing ourselves every single day that we've got time, or, well, that's too risky. Well, taking a breath is too risky. Walking outside is risky. An avalanche could take you. There's all kinds of things out there, but to sit there and say, well, I need to be risk averse, what you're really telling me is you quit. Now, I know all the investment bankers out there are not going to like that comment, and I understand that respectfully, sirs. I'm not seeking to be contrarian, but I am seeking to invite you to look at it from a different point of view. The different point of view is, A, it's not your money. B, it's our money. This is also to the politicians. It's our money. We help make this country good, whatever your country you're coming from. So take that money and put it in things that start with the people, because without people, there's no country. There's no community, and there is no continuity. So we all have to look at their basic needs. And post-COVID, when we really got down to those hierarchical issues of, am I going to survive? Am I going to catch this thing? And is it going to take me like it took thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around this world? Am I going to be so isolated that this is my lot? This is life now. We live in the cocoon. And I cite the great Steven Spielberg movie, Ready Player One. We are on a collision course for isolation and disassociation from humanity. And we have known through experiments of psychology that go back 300 years plus, we are a social creature. We crave community. And the moment we start isolating ourselves, and I cite the late, great chimpanzee studies of the early 50s and 60s, when we isolate them, they become withdrawn, they become depressed, and ultimately their spirit breaks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will happen naturally with death. Hopefully in a positive for you. But why do it during life? So Build Your Fortress is about not just building a better, faster, greener, stronger structure, but it's also building communities and how we do those communities, the fund managers that we work with, the marketing companies that we work with, that really invites us to play a game. And how we do that has been very unique. And it is a three-prong approach. Again, it's competitive collaboration where we took 3 or 4 different industries, we put them together and said, we've always stood apart, and said, well, no, AJ does that and Travis does that. And if they cross paths, great. Says who? Curiosity and human persistence is what's got us this far as a species. Wouldn't it make sense to become curious? Well, how could we build it better, faster? How could we make this start? Hey, engineers, come on, lend us your strength. Hey, truck drivers, teach us how to make trucks that get better gas mileage and use different fuels than fossil fuels, like hydrogen as an example, which has been around for, 70 years. But let's put that in the thought process. Let's all bring our knowledge, because each one of you is a master, whether you know it or not. You're a master. And my invitation to you is Get involved with us in somehow. Lend us your knowledge. Get on our newsletter. Ask questions. Let's work on a better, faster, greener, stronger product because we are constantly committed to what if and who said. Because only person who said that is us from the past. And we all know the past, well, is the past. And it can define us if you want it to. I choose to believe that it doesn't. So there's where we stand. And that's how I think we're going to continue to grow. And that's the wave of the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the future indeed. There is so much to learn from you, Dr. Travis, about all these things, about building out fortresses, about high performance panels, and the future of construction. So I'm sure a lot of people would want to know more about you, about the way you are doing things, about the way you are innovating the future of humanity in terms of construction. So for those people, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Dr. Travis?
First thing is reach right out to our website, buildyourfortress.com. We're on every social media platform. Watch us do it in real time. I know a lot of us need to see to believe, and I understand that philosophy. I'm not talking about religion. I'm just talking about mind shift. Watch us build it. You'll see it on our website. You'll see how SIPs are built, answer every question, and you'll ultimately come to the conclusion of, why haven't we been building this way before? And you'll come to the realization of, because it takes people like you to step forward to make solid investments in companies like ours and saying, hey, I believe in a future, but I believe the future's here. I don't have to wait for it for my kids or my grandkids. I can be a part of it now and then pass it on. So go to buildyourfortress.com. I answer all my direct email. I don't have a bot, by the way, that does it. I know people want to. I don't. I think that's a fool's errand. That's just my philosophy. I answer all my own emails. My team answers all its own emails. And we are in the business of people. Profit is not our primary objective. I know that for those of you who want to invest in our company, you're going to go, well, what about our profitability? Look, we're profitable, people. That's not the issue. We make good profit, but that's not the issue. The issue is, what if we did it like Netflix and Amazon, where it's, we're making 9 or 10% versus 50 and 60% when we don't need to, because there's so much volume. We could literally be building for the next 20 years, 24 hours a day. And I don't know that we'd even get to 1 million homes, just ourselves. And that's just this country. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a global issue. This is not an isolated issue. So get involved with us. If you're interested in us coming to your country, let us know. We're working with other countries right now to bring this technology to it, to even license it to you, to let other people own it. We are not going to hoard this IP. Now, we keep it proprietary. That's true. However, that's just because that's what the investment bankers want right now. My goal is I want everybody to own this. And God willing, maybe we'll win a Nobel Peace Prize for changing construction industry. Who knows? But that would let us know that we stand among the greats who have made a massive impact on society. And ultimately, at the risk of sounding altruistic, and that's okay, at 54, rolling 55, I am a little altruistic. I choose to believe in humanity. I choose to believe in our possibility. And I think there's a lot of us out there that are patriots of their own countries as well as our own, and also who believe in the model that it can be done. The question is, and my question to you is, okay, you've listened to a great podcast. Mr. AJ has given an opportunity to people like me, and thank you for that opportunity, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for that opportunity so that we could present to the world our ideology. Not everyone's going to agree with it. I understand that. But those of you who do, I challenge you, I invite you, I ask you, go to our website, get involved with us. We need your help because no man is self-made. That's a fact. We can't expand fast enough. We literally can't. Right now, we are on the precipice of almost to the point of breaking point where we can't keep up with our own orders, hence why we reached out and said, we'll share the profit with our competitors because it's coming. And with all the things we have in the United States and every country, the demand is going to only go higher. So get involved with us. Go to buildyourfortress.com. Better, faster, greener, stronger. Uphold the oath to your country and to yourself and to your community. And most importantly, to your family and to your next generation. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.